Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having an amazing day so far. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, it really helps the channel and keeps you updated with the latest stories about the Slaton sisters. Now, let's get into something truly incredible, something that feels like a full circle moment in reality television and, more importantly, in the life of Tammy Slaton. For years, Tammy's life has been broadcast to the world. Every triumph and every failure laid bare for millions to witness. When the cameras first started rolling, the world was introduced to two sisters trapped by food addiction, struggling with mobility, and weighed down not just by their physical bodies but by the emotional baggage of years of neglect, disappointment, and unhealthy patterns. Viewers were immediately hooked, not because it was easy to watch, but because it was painfully real. Amy Halterman, the younger sister, often came across as hopeful, willing to try, willing to change. Tammy, on the other hand, was portrayed as stubborn, defiant, and resistant. Fans feared that she would not make it past the early seasons of 1000 Delby Sisters. Many thought she'd be a tragic figure who faded away before ever getting the chance to truly live. And yet, here we are in 2025, with Tammy not only surviving but thriving in ways that even the most optimistic viewers couldn't have predicted. Her latest achievement isn't a number on a scale, a new medical procedure, or a flashy makeover. It's something much simpler, but infinitely more powerful. Tammy hosted her very first dinner party. Now, for anyone else, that might sound like nothing more than a casual social event, but for Tammy Slaton, this was monumental. This wasn't just about putting food on a table. This was about reclaiming her life, proving to herself and everyone watching that she's no longer a passive participant. She's a creator, a doer, and a woman ready to take her rightful place in her family and in her community. Think back for a moment to the Tammy we met in those early episodes. She was over 600 pounds, struggling just to sit at a table, let alone share one comfortably with her family. She was often isolated during mealtimes, not out of choice, but because her body physically limited her. Scenes that broke fans' hearts showed Tammy trying to maneuver into spaces where she simply didn't fit, gasping for air after meals, or breaking down in frustration as arguments about food spiraled into shouting matches. The dinner table, which for so many families represents love, togetherness, and shared laughter, was for Tammy a battlefield. Every bite was judged, every portion criticized. Food wasn't joy, it was survival, self-medication, and sometimes self-destruction. So when you fast forward to today, and see Tammy not just sitting at a table, but sitting at the head of the table as the host of her own dinner, the symbolism is overwhelming. This is not just about grilled chicken and roasted vegetables. This is about identity, about belonging, about a woman who has redefined herself after years of being defined by her struggles. The journey to get here was far from easy. Tammy faced multiple health crises that nearly ended her life. At one point, fans held their breath as news broke that she had been placed on life support after her lungs failed. Many assumed it was the end of the story, that Tammy would tragically become another statistic of morbid obesity. But Tammy fought. Somehow, against all odds, she clawed her way back. Rehab became her crucible. It was in those long, grueling days of relearning how to breathe, how to move, how to resist the siren call of old habits, that Tammy began her real transformation. Surgery played a part, yes, but it was only one chapter. The true story was the internal work, learning discipline, patience, and a new way of seeing herself. Weight came off slowly, but it came off steadily. Alongside the physical changes, there was a new light in Tammy's eyes. Fans began to notice it on social media. Her TikToks showed her laughing, dancing, even celebrating herself. For a woman who once hid from the world, Tammy began to put herself out there. One post, one smile, one small victory at a time. And then came the dinner party. What looked on the surface like just another evening meal was, in truth, the climax of years of struggle, heartbreak, and resilience. Tammy invited her closest family, Amy, Chris, Amanda, and a couple of cousins to her home. The menu was intentionally healthy: grilled chicken instead of fried, roasted vegetables, and desserts light enough to honor her progress without undoing it. But the real feast wasn't on the plates. It was in the laughter echoing around the room, in the absence of tension, in the way her family looked at her not as a burden, not as a patient, but as a sister, a daughter, an equal. Chris, who had spent much of the show worrying about his own health, admitted with tears in his eyes that Tammy's table felt like a victory for all of them. Amy, who for years had carried the heavy responsibility of watching over her sister, was finally able to sit back and enjoy the meal without worrying about what Tammy might do next. For the first time, Tammy wasn't the subject of whispered concern or cautious glances. She was the star of the evening, and not because of her struggles, but because of her strength. For Tammy, this wasn't just dinner. This was a reclamation of her life. This was her declaration that she had arrived at a place where she could give as much as she once took, where she could contribute instead of simply being cared for. Hosting wasn't just about the food. It was about proving to herself that she was capable, reliable, and worthy of belonging. And let's be honest, for many people, hosting a dinner might feel trivial, even mundane. But for Tammy, it was everything. It was proof that she could engage with food in a healthy way without fear or obsession. It was proof that she could create a safe, loving space at a table that had once been a source of so much pain. It was proof that she could stand tall as an independent woman, responsible for her home, her choices, and her relationships. More than anything, it was proof that she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. What made the dinner party unforgettable wasn't just the menu or the laughter, it was the moment. Tammy herself broke down in tears during a quiet confessional. In her own words, she admitted, "I used to think I didn't deserve to be at the table. I thought I'd always be on the outside, watching everyone else live their lives while I sat alone, ashamed of mine. But tonight proved me wrong. I don't just deserve a seat, I can create the table. I can welcome people into my world." Those words hit like a lightning bolt for fans who had watched her journey from the very beginning. The Tammy they once saw gasping for air in a hospital bed. The Tammy who lashed out at her family in anger and despair. The Tammy who so many gave up on. That Tammy was gone. In her place stood a woman who had taken ownership of her life and her story. The emotional weight of that confession rippled beyond the screen. On social media, fans flooded timelines with support. Comments like, "This is the Tammy we've been praying for. And I cried, seeing her serve her family. This is bigger than weight loss. This is life reclaimed," filled TikTok and Instagram feeds. Even longtime critics, those who doubted she would ever change, found themselves silenced by the authenticity of the moment. The dinner party episode became a cultural talking point, not because it was filled with drama or shocking revelations, but because it showcased something raw and real, the transformation of a human being who had been written off. Reality TV so often thrives on chaos. But here was a story about healing, and fans clung to it. And for Tammy's family, the shift was just as dramatic. Chris, who had struggled with his own health issues and often voiced his doubts about whether Tammy would survive to see milestones like this, admitted that seeing her host was like watching a miracle. Amy, who had spent years balancing her own journey with the heavy weight of being Tammy's caretaker, finally breathed a sigh of relief. For once, she wasn't responsible for Tammy's well-being at the dinner table. Instead, she could simply sit back, laugh, and enjoy being a sister again. The symbolism of the moment can't be overstated. The dinner table, once a symbol of Tammy's exclusion and pain, had been transformed into a stage where she showcased independence, balance, and belonging. Every plate she served wasn't just food, it was a message. I am capable, I am here, I matter. But the dinner party wasn't the end of Tammy's story. In many ways, it was only the beginning. Hosting became a stepping stone for a series of new dreams and goals Tammy has begun to speak about openly. For one, travel. For years, Tammy was confined to a narrow world, limited by her mobility and dependence on oxygen. Planes, long car rides, even short vacations were impossible. Now, with her mobility improved and her health more stable, Tammy has her eyes set on traveling with her family, not just to prove she can, but to create memories outside the walls of hospitals and rehab centers. Cooking, too, has become an area Tammy wants to grow in. While the dinner party menu was simple, she has expressed interest in taking cooking classes to expand her skills. Her goal isn't just to feed herself, but to create healthier meals that keep her on track while also allowing her to enjoy the social aspect of food. Where food once isolated her, Tammy is turning it into a bridge, a tool to connect with others instead of pushing them away. And then there's the possibility of speaking engagements. Fans have long said Tammy's story is inspirational, but with her newfound confidence, she may take that to the next level. Imagine Tammy standing on a stage, telling her story not as a victim of addiction but as a survivor, a fighter, and a woman who knows what it means to claw your way back from the edge of death. The very idea of Tammy Slaton, once mocked and doubted, becoming a motivational speaker is almost poetic. The ultimate redemption arc. There are also whispers of romance. Tammy's love life has always been complicated, and the show hasn't shied away from showing the highs and lows of her relationships. But now, with her health and independence in a stronger place, Tammy has hinted at wanting something more stable, more real. Fans speculate that she may be ready to share her new lifestyle with a partner who supports her growth, rather than enabling old habits. Every one of these future steps builds on what that dinner party represented. It wasn't just a meal. It was a declaration of capability, independence, and hope. Tammy has transformed the very thing that once symbolized her deepest struggles into a symbol of her greatest strength, and viewers feel connected to it in a deeply personal way. For anyone who has ever been underestimated, left out, or defined by their worst moments, Tammy's story resonates. It's not about perfection. It's about resilience. It's about choosing, day after day, to fight for a better version of yourself. What makes it even more powerful is the fact that 1000 LB Sisters has documented this journey from the beginning. Fans aren't just seeing the polished outcome. They've witnessed the hospital visits, the tears, the screaming matches, the setbacks, and the failures. That's why seeing Tammy at the head of her own dinner table feels like a victory not just for her, but for everyone who has followed her story from the start. The transformation is undeniable. From a woman who once couldn't breathe without oxygen to a woman who now breathes life into every room she enters. Tammy has rewritten her narrative in front of our eyes. And what's most exciting is that this feels less like the final chapter and more like the opening of an entirely new book. Tammy Slaton's dinner party may have lasted only a few hours, but the ripple effects continue to spread, not just in her own home, but in the hearts of viewers around the world. What seemed like an ordinary evening of family, food, and laughter has become a cultural milestone for fans who have followed her painful, messy, yet inspiring path for years. This wasn't just dinner. This was destiny. To understand why the moment hit so deeply, you have to remember where Tammy started. Flash back to those early seasons when she could barely sit in a car, when simply standing up to walk a few feet left her gasping for air. When every doctor's visit seemed like a grim countdown, fans remember the scenes of her lying in hospital beds, machines beeping, her family sobbing at her bedside. At the time, it seemed impossible to imagine a future where Tammy would host anything, much less a joyful gathering at her own table. But against all odds, she fought her way here. And that fight, that relentless struggle against addiction, health crisis, and self-doubt is what makes this dinner party more than just reality TV. It's a lesson in human resilience. Viewers weren't simply watching Tammy pass plates, they were watching her reclaim years of her life that many believed were already lost. The images from the evening are now iconic. Tammy laughing so hard she covered her face, Amy resting back in her chair with a rare look of peace, Chris raising his glass in a quiet toast to his sister. These aren't just family snapshots, they are symbols of survival. They are proof that broken things can be rebuilt, that scars can heal into strength, and that no one is beyond redemption. But what happens now? That's the question fans can't stop asking. If Tammy has already shocked the world with this milestone, what's next? The possibilities are endless, and Tammy herself has hinted at several. First on her list is travel. For so long, she was chained to hospital walls and rehab centers. Her life narrowed down to the square footage she could manage. Now, with her health stable and her independence growing, Tammy wants to see the world. Imagine Tammy stepping onto a plane, suitcase in hand, breathing freely without oxygen tanks, ready to experience life beyond her hometown. Fans are already dreaming of spin-off episodes that follow her on new adventures. And the thought of Tammy sharing her laughter in a new city is enough to keep viewers glued to their screens. Cooking is another frontier. Tammy wants to conquer. Hosting a dinner party opened a new door, but she's not stopping at one night. She's already expressed her excitement about cooking classes, wanting to learn recipes that align with her healthier lifestyle. For Tammy, food is no longer the enemy, it's becoming a language of love, connection, and creativity. One can easily picture a future where she even writes a cookbook or shares her recipes online, turning her hardest battle into a gift for others walking the same road. And then there's the possibility of Tammy stepping into the spotlight as a speaker. Her story is one of the most remarkable in reality TV history. A woman who went from the brink of death to living proof that change is possible. Fans already say they find strength in her transformation. If Tammy were to step on a stage and share her journey, imagine the impact. Her voice, once silenced by shame and struggle, could inspire thousands battling food addiction, obesity, or hopelessness. She could become more than a TV personality. She could become a leader, a motivator, a beacon of survival. Of course, her personal life remains a subject of curiosity. Relationships have been a source of both joy and pain for Tammy. But now, in a place of strength and independence, She seems ready for stability. Fans can't help but speculate that the next chapter might include finding a partner who shares her vision for a healthier, more balanced life. The idea of Tammy walking down the aisle, not as a patient struggling for survival but as a woman radiant with confidence, is a moment many would celebrate with her. And what about 1000 Delby Sisters itself? Tammy's transformation has reshaped the very core of the series. When it began, the tension came from the fear that Tammy wouldn't survive, that every season might be her last. Now, the show carries a different energy, one of hope, growth, and possibility. Viewers aren't just watching for drama anymore. They're watching for inspiration, for proof that miracles can unfold in real time. Tammy's evolution may even redefine what the series becomes, shifting from tragedy to triumph in a way reality TV rarely dares to. But perhaps the most powerful impact isn't on the show, it's on the fans. Messages continue to pour in from people who see themselves in Tammy. Messages from mothers who struggle with food addiction, from teenagers battling low self-esteem, from men and women who've been told their weight will kill them. Tammy's dinner party isn't just her victory, it's theirs too. Because if Tammy Slaton, who once lay gasping for air on life support, can now host her family at a dinner table filled with laughter, then maybe they can rewrite their stories as well. And isn't that the true power of reality TV at its best? Beyond the drama, beyond the tears, beyond the scripted moments and editing tricks, sometimes it captures something real, something raw, something that changes people's hearts. Tammy's dinner party was one of those rare moments where reality TV transcended entertainment and became something larger, a testimony to human resilience. As the episode ended, Tammy's confessional words echoed in fans' ears. "I thought I'd always be on the outside watching everyone else live, but now I see I can create my own space. I finally found where I belong." That sentence alone might go down as one of the most unforgettable lines in the show's history, because it wasn't just about Tammy, it was about anyone who has ever felt excluded, forgotten, or underestimated. The woman who once had no seat at the table now sits at the head of it, and she's not giving it up. This is only the beginning. Tammy Slaton's story is far from over. And if her dinner party proved anything, it's that her best chapters are still being written. The world is watching, not with fear anymore, but with hope. Not with fear anymore, but with hope.